Hey there, I'm Steve Quillian, and this is Lynda Davis with the Wood Window Museum in Tampa. This is our Chronic Artisan series, and today we're going to talk about big jobs. Yeah, and what and I guess what that might entail, because we actually do a lot of small jobs, and we have a big job coming up. You want to tell us about it? What's happening?
So we're working on this amazing building here in Tampa that used to be a theatre. Actually, it's an incredible building, and it's a complex project with a lot of windows working around an organization that is housed within the building itself. So and I guess for us the biggest difference is how to deploy people and how not to have our regular way of working be completely disrupted by this other big project.
Well, what's wrong with our regular way of working?
Well, I mean, the way we work regularly is good, which is what the problem is. It's like throwing in a huge disruptor into the middle of
a huge disruptor that could be a disruptor.
Yeah, and figuring out ways to make it into an opportunity, and it's an incredible opportunity. I mean,
well, it's good. We have done big jobs before.
Yes, yeah, lots of amazing big jobs,
but they are infrequent, right? So a lot of the lessons that you learn from the big jobs, that you swear you won't ever do that again.
Yeah.
Sometimes you forget about those by the time you get to the next, big job. Like the first big job we ever did. You probably want to know about this. Is that we did the Manatee River Hotel in Bradenton, Florida. Something like 400 something windows.
And, wow. That was before my time.
That was before you came along. That was in 2013, 2012, 2013, actually. And, what's really cool about that project is that we had all of those windows done under time, way, way, way under time.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So were those windows, I mean, we'll get into this, but, there's projects, I guess, that you can get on some of the big buildings, a repetition, because there's a lot of the same windows, like a factory, a cigar factory would have many of the same windows.
And we have done the cigar factories.
Yeah.
We've done, the Lion's Eye Institute, which is an old cigar factory in Ybor City. We did Tampa Armature Works, which is a real popular destination for people to go to right now. We've done, churches. We've done, big houses and stuff like that too.
So how did the Manatee Hotel, how was that so successful? Like, do you remember? Because it would be really handy if you could remember that now.
Well, okay. Well, if you, about my 10 windows in 10 days rule, and, in one window a day, and that basically is, a standardization, a process that we put in place so that we can, time everything and put everything in a logical order, and things like that. And so the cool thing about big jobs is that if you get your momentum right, and you get it set up properly in the beginning, then it flows properly, and the danger though in a big job is that if you don't get it set up right,
it can quickly.
Yeah. We've been working really, really hard on our systems for our small jobs.
Yeah.
Like, what can you tell us about that on your end?
Well, so I mean, we're literally looking at every part of the process, from how people work in different parts of the business to scheduling and using how to best use the resources we have available to us. But in the last month, we tried an experiment of layering multiple jobs, which is a bit like doing one big job in a way of layering multiple jobs on top of each other so that they're fully intertwined. And then we could really start to make best use of resources and maximize the productivity and all that stuff. But it's a challenge. And, you sort of start wondering, am I spending so much time managing this and the day-to-day of tracking where you are in each job? Because normally it's kind of a bit more sequential. And so it's kind of easier to track where you are. So, getting those systems in place to where they're not a burden themselves, they're helping us rather than,
Yeah. Do you plan on taking that system that you developed for sequencing the people and transferring it to the big job?
Yeah.
How do you plan on doing that?
Well, I think it's going to be about breaking down the big job into bite-sized chunks, and those that make sense. If you take this big job has kind of 3 walls and quite distinct areas of work, and I think if we have to look at each area of work like that, so that it doesn't get away from us, so it will be using the same approach of scheduling where people are, what they need to deliver that day. So
right
we can, yeah.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting on this big job.
Yeah, it really is hard to do. I had a thought in my mind. It just disappeared. That happens a lot
Yeah.
too.
I mean, what I would say is one of the I talk about like a seesaw. One of the interesting tensions, or however you want to say it, in the business is that the workflow is the stuff that has to happen in the shop, the stuff that has to happen on site, and there's getting that seesaw, that balance just right to where people are not getting ahead in one area and behind in another is a way that we're kind of getting that nice balance and keeping everybody busy and efficient is what we need to do with the big job.
Yeah, well, I know you don't mean this, but when you say keep everybody busy, all right,
productive.
Yeah, I know what you meant, but it's very easy to keep busy, headed in the wrong direction. Yeah, right. So busy, headed in the right direction is really, really important. I remember what I was going to say. Is that when you're comparing small jobs with big jobs, the small jobs, they can't be too small either, but small jobs have very, very little room for error. Yeah. Right? And they're very unforgiving when you get 1 or 2 details off, or you're not paying attention, or one person doesn't do something in the right order or something like that. I mean, the snowball effect is immediate. You're punished for your error immediately, and oftentimes, we make mistake like that, and we have to bail ourselves out by our talent. Yeah. Right. And so that is actually a good thing about small jobs. Is it because it keeps you honest? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Big jobs, all right, can be problematic because there's a lot bigger margin for error. Yeah. Right. And sometimes if you're making an error, you don't catch it until it's way too late, and you've already lost. The snowball's like this big. Yeah, a lot of money, and and you get toward the end of the job, and you're frantic, trying to bail yourself out by your talent again. Yeah, but the risk is just much greater because obviously, bailing you out on a small job, you're talking about, maybe 1,000 here or hundreds or whatever the consequence is. On a big job, it's a massive impact. Yeah, but, okay. So what is a big job, right? We know what a small job is, right? Mm-hmm. So what's a small job for us? Well, a tiny job is like 5 windows. 5 windows. Yeah, we avoid those, but we do them when they're special houses that work for our museum, and But 10 windows is our small job. Small job. What would be a medium-sized job? So like 20 to 30 windows. Right. Yeah. So how many windows is on this job coming up? 70. 70. So it's not just 70 that makes it big. It's 70 really special
crazy windows. You know, they're massive. They're very special. They're not just squares.
Yeah, that's true. See, and you're right, because 70 windows can be somewhat misleading.
Yeah.
Right? Because, from one viewpoint, you just said, a regular sized job would be 30 windows. Well, 70 is not much bigger than 2 of those jobs.
Yeah.
So how is this job different than 2 of those jobs?
So it's the unique window style. So they're really ornate windows.
Mm-hmm.
Plus it's 3 stories and very massive stories, not a regular residential. It's not residential, it's commercial space. It requires internal scaffolding because it's an old theatre. So to get up to the spaces is complicated. Yeah. So those are all the things that make it a big job.
All right. So it's not just a house.
No.
So you got to get scaffolding that's going to be like almost on the street.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we have. So not only are we organizing people, we're organizing a scaffolding company too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we're juggling making the clients happy, keeping the communication open with where we can be. All of those moving parts make it very, very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, just the management alone is a big, complicated part of it, which with the house, whoever's on site can pretty well manage the flow and the communication and other parts themselves, but this takes a whole team effort. I mean, there's no room to do anything else while we do this.
Well, you say that though, but what if we are able to set it up properly, get our momentum going early, set our trajectory where it ought to be, and what if we are hitting our targets, and all of a sudden we have room to maybe do another couple of jobs in between? Do you think we would?
Well, I think it was a choice, and I would say you would for the right project.
Yeah.
One that wasn't mentally strenuous or really a disruptor in its own right. One that you knew you could manage without, a ton of extra pressure. And then it's like, would you take on another job, or would you just use, if you had that slack, would you use it for other business improvements or building the second phase of our museum? Or, there's other activities that our business is looking to do this year that,
That's true, because there always is that subtle tension that potential clients will put on you. Can you fit me in?
Yeah.
And then sometimes the temptation is you see that space opening up, and then you make the mistake of saying, maybe I can, and then, you should never have said that, it should always, you should, yeah.
And I mean, I think the measure of that is every one of our clients, we give them special attention. We take care of them. And so I would never allow that to happen if we didn't feel 100% confident that we were going to give that customer the same attention that they would have if we weren't working on that project.
Yeah.
Because that's just not what we're about,
I think one of the hardest parts is, on any job, regardless of the size, and I think it's easier to get lost on bigger jobs, is providing space for artisans to be artisans and do the work that they know they can do if they are given the space to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's what happens in a lot of building trades now, is that it's such a whip cracking to get the job finished, to make the money, to overcome mistakes and all this kind of stuff, that people are no longer concentrating on the art element of what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're just they're trying to find any way to get the job done. And maybe the client won't notice this, or maybe I can get away with that. Part of the trick is, and proper organization is, setting it up so that the artisan can do what the artisan does.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah.
And that's really what our job is. When we're organizing the job, because let me just point out this about artisans, is that artisans, you know, are what they are because they have mastered a movement and they have mastered a sequence of movements that's related to that particular product that they're putting out.
Yeah.
Right? You know, and when they are in their zone, they can do just masterful work. Most artisans don't ever get beyond that initial set of sequencing. Like it could be, you know, that an artisan could be building cabinets, making doors, you know, remodeling a kitchen, building a deck, making a fence, doing siding. I mean, there's, you know, cutting boards. You know, it's limitless what an artisan can do. So they master their movements, they master their sequences of movements, right? And they might even master sequencing their sequences to a certain degree, right? But rarely do they ever get to the point where this is hard to follow. So rarely do they ever get to the point where they can sequence those who are sequencing their sequences. That's hard to follow, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, but see, that's one of the things that's lost in our culture is the ability for a mind to masterfully weave together all of the elements of a project so that it happens flawlessly, so that it looks like it happens effortlessly.
Yeah.
You know, there used to be that, you know, where all the trades would work together in a way that was complementary and they understood each other.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and now all of that is disjointed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's not organic the way it happens now. It has to be.
Well, you know, some things that appear organic are highly orchestrated.
Yeah.
Now, I think the other thing too that people have lost is the understanding that to properly sequence the artisans, those who are sequencing their movements, the art of sequencing people is an art in itself.
Well, and to take joy in that, you know, if you think about like a head chef in a big restaurant or, you know, whoever's orchestrating all of that, you know, you've got somebody that's prepped ingredients and somebody that's cooking different elements, but the joy comes when it all lands on the plate at the right moment.
Yeah.
You know, and all looks perfect and can go out to the customer in the way that the head chef would have envisaged it when they charged $28 for that plate of food.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really fancy restaurant.
Yeah. Really fancy.
So, you know, and that's how I think our work needs to be and is, you know, but it is taking, you know, the chef might have come up with the idea of the recipe in the first place and done some trials and figured it out and who's going to cook what, but, you know, the actual sort of taking joy in each of those processes coming together is, you know, is something that I think people see it as like a chore rather than a joy, you know, and it's that I think is, like you say, it's artisanship in its own right.
Well, it's just like you say, when it comes out right, you know, that's what you're really going for, you know, and you know, you want, how would I say this? You know, like take this project that we're doing. You want everybody to be doing their best work because this work that we're doing as a museum, you know, makes the building that we are working on an authentic museum all of its own.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, when it's put back together the way it ought to be, there's an authenticity there, you know, that resonates with people.
Yeah.
You know, there's something about it that, you know, people just intuitively understand and get.
Yeah.
And they know that it's right.
Yeah.
You know, and so setting a job up so that you're not cutting corners, you know, because look, if you're cutting corners, right, you're not doing museum quality work.
No, and there's a difference between efficiency and cutting corners. You know, doing things well and getting the flow right to where you're efficient is awesome. You know,
Well, that's definitely
avoiding.
true.
And we talked about on this big job, there are windows that are how high, 40 feet in the air, you know, and we had a conversation about them being operational. You know, that would, and of course we're going to make them operational because we're a museum. So of course we're going to do it right. But it would be very easy for somebody else to come in and be like, well, is anyone actually going to operate this window that's 40 feet in the air? You know, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to make it.
Yeah, they're really good at making a facade.
Yeah.
You know, a window facade that looks kind of like it.
Yeah.
But the actual window, they probably wouldn't know how to do that.
And you know what?
Or they probably wouldn't even be interested.
Yeah. And then we would walk, if it was us, we would walk away feeling just sad that we didn't do it right. You know, that's not what we want to do. And
Well,
so,
you know, it's kind of a side point, but that's the exact problem that we run into with flippers.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we've been to like 2 jobs in the past couple of months where the house has been flipped and they have put together a facade of what is kind of supposed to look the part. But when you go and you inspect it, it's actually not the part.
No.
You know, and to put it back the way that it was intended, it actually works with the house, serves the house, and serves the people who love the house. You know, to undo what the flippers have done, to put it back in the way that it was intended, that usually costs more than sometimes the house is even worth.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't realize, people don't realize it. I mean, they do realize it, like the people who buy the house, but then what are they supposed to do?
Well, I don't even know if they do. I think they come in, they can see the things that are obviously a problem. They know that maybe something wasn't done quite right, or the kitchen was a cheapy kitchen or whatever. But people are just not, you know, I mean, I only say that because with so many of the calls we get are, oh, I bought this house and it looked great. And, you know, I knew there'd be some things, but now we're in it. Man, the windows. And you're like, that's just not something that you build, or people, we're going to take on a job in the summer that is a building inspector told the person that he thought that there was a problem with the window. So that particular inspector noticed there was something, but even he couldn't quite put his finger on what the problem was, but just enough to where at least the homeowner was like, okay, I know I have to address it. You know.
Well, that's the culture that we live in, and that's why the work that this museum does is the rarity, because it does work in authenticity.
Yeah.
You know, and this is period correct. This works as though it was originally intended. It functions just the same. It complements the house. You know, it's not just a bunch of people trying to make believe they know what they're doing.
No.
You know, this is like well-researched, well thought out solutions that bring a house back to where it's supposed to be.
But I mean, the point is yes, all of those things. So we're not them, but the other end, we're also not those people that will charge a customer, $1,000 a day to stroke their window and save every splinter.
Yeah.
We're pragmatists.
Yeah.
It's about, this has got to be done in a way that is efficient and makes sense in a modern world, that isn't gonna, cost you bazillions of dollars and isn't gonna just save every scrap because we think we should. It's we're doing the work as I think those people that built the buildings in the first place would have authentically intended us to. They wouldn't have done that. Those people, they would have done it efficiently and practically and properly the first time round. And that's what we're wanting to do.
Well, and to do that kind of work, to put the windows back the way that they were intended, the way they emerged over time, to be the optimal window, to be the archetypal window, we're not really restoring the windows. We're restoring the people and the spirit that put the windows there to begin with.
Yeah.
And when that's intact, everything turns out right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The moment you kind of misunderstand that or go, yeah.
Yeah, because you try to apply today's culture and their mindset to the old buildings, that's when you get the facade.
Yeah.
That's when you get the stuff that's not quite right, and it's a little wrong, and it's you know. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like buying a nice piece of furniture and knowing that underneath that veneer there's some chipboard. I mean, the first time you ding it exposes the chipboard, and or you go to move it and the screws loosen because and that's what's happening with all these,
Yeah, because if you want, some people want the real deal.
Yeah.
And that's, and I think rightfully so, because there's something encapsulated there, that you can't get from an off the shelf product made in China.
Yeah.
You want something done with human hands in a real way, real materials. That'll last 100 years. It's there's a lot to the 100-year part.
So, and I think one of the things that's interesting about this particular project actually is they are prioritizing the windows. So, I mean, I'll be honest, this building needs a lot of work. I mean, it feels limitless what could be done on it, but the windows are where they are. That's what they're prioritizing, which is actually a really interesting choice.
Yeah.
And makes it actually similar to some of the homes we work on. That some of the homeowners that do kind of understand the value of that.
Yeah. So I think the key to success on this big project is to get the proper organization and momentum early.
Yeah.
And stack our talent up front so that when we do run into things, we've got the space to handle the problem in an artisan type way.
Yeah.
So the artisan spirit is allowed to emerge, and we are able to give them a value beyond what they actually paid for.
Yeah.
An unexpected value, an unexpected return on their investment.
Yeah.
Which is, Yeah,
that's awesome.
Well, well, I think that's what everybody would do.
Yeah.
If they could.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be intentional to try to organize ourselves so that can happen, so that we can be ourselves.
Yeah.
We can be who we really are inside, because we want to do good work.
Yeah.
It's just, you've seen it happen. You get unorganized, and at the end of the job, we're just busting our butts, just try to,
get it done, get out, and yeah. No, we don't. It never works out well anyway if you do that.
Well, even if the client doesn't know. I mean, the client might know, something, but even if it does end up well and the job comes out like it should, you're still way more tired than you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the jobs that we do, we should plan ways to be energized at the end and to celebrate what we've done.
Yeah.
To celebrate with our clients. Well, big jobs are not easy. They're really not. But if you have been practicing your techniques on small jobs, the same techniques that win on small jobs also win on big jobs. And it all starts with mastering a movement, and getting good at that particular skill, and then adding another movement and another movement and another movement, and then getting a team of people who are mastering movements. And so that when you go in, everybody's looking for the absolute best way to do the project. So they're all complementing each other that way, and I think we can do that, so we're going to get started early by, we've kind of taken a catalog or a listing of all of the sashes that we know about that are rotted, and there's a lot, and so, we're going to start working to get the parts ready to make those repairs early on, and get all that stuff ready in advance so that, when we show up, people will be amazed at what we're able to get done in just a day. But they don't necessarily see what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good project.
Yeah. So we're starting that in February, which is just right around the corner.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
Well, tell us what you think. We know that, maybe you've got a job of your own. Maybe it's like your own house or something like that. Maybe you're on a crew. Maybe you're working for a company. Maybe you've got a big job. Maybe you've done big jobs. Let us know what your experience is with small jobs versus big jobs, and how you would handle it. Are we on the money, or do we not know what the heck we're talking about? Jeez, I don't know. Time will tell, I guess.
Yeah. Check back in 3 months.
Check back in. Yeah, we'll see. If we come back and our hair's all messed up and got a black eye, if we got it, so we'll see if we're smiling or not. So
yeah, awesome.
All right, love you guys. Steve Quillian and Lynda Davis for the Wood Window Museum. Over and out. Bye.
Awesome. I shouldn't have to edit that one.
Yeah, not much, if any.
Just that little bit at the beginning.
Yes, I was thinking too that what if like we could simultaneously live cast that.